Okay. This is another extension. We have one more section after this, and then it's the test. This is called percent of change.
Ow, it's awkward. Ow.
What happened?
Hit in the face.
What happened?
Hit in the face.
I just like that with my book.
My glasses off.
This is a crazy bad.
You did a good job.
Thanks.
Okay, so really percent of change, all you're doing is subtracting the two numbers, divide by the first number or the original number, and then you move the decimal to make it a percentage. That's all you're doing. Alright, now, you also need to tell whether you're increasing, it's a percent of increase, or it's a percent of decrease. So, obviously if the numbers are decreasing, you would have a percent of decrease. If they're increasing, percent of increase, yes.
If you, the two numbers you subtract, is that the two percentages of them?
No, I'm just giving you an example
Two
here in a second.
numbers.
Alright, so let's do example 1. So you go in and you want to buy something at $16, and you think, well, I'll come back later sometime. And you go back in another week and it went from $16 to $20. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's a huge increase, right? It increased, right? Okay, so now you know it's an increase. Now I want to know the percent of change, how much they actually marked it up. So now what you do is subtract 16 minus 20 divided by the first number. What was the first number? 16. So you have negative 4 over 16. And we don't do negatives. The negative just means that they increased the value. Okay, so I don't care if you say 20 minus 16 or 16 minus 20. You know whether or not the amount increased or decreased. But don't worry about the negative at this point. I just want to know the percent of change. So 4 divided by 16 is 1/4 or 0.25. Come on, you don't need your calculators for this. 1/4 is 0.25, which is 25% increase. Okay? Any questions? All right, example 2. You go in to buy a blouse, ladies, $35. You say that's too much money. You come back a week later, and it is now $20. Find the percentage, yes.
For example, was he decrease?
For this?
No, example 1.
No, this is increase.
But you said negative 4 over 16.
Depends on how you're subtracting.
Oh.
The point was, don't worry about the negatives.
Okay.
So what you need to do is go back and look at those and say, what was my original number? Sometimes they'll rearrange them. Okay? So I don't know exactly what we were looking at when we talked about that. So go back and look at that and make sure that you don't say the wrong thing. Okay? So I apologize if that was on a problem that was the opposite. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What's the answer?
42.85742.
Okay. So he took 35 minus 20, divided by the original number. So that's 15 over 35. And you got 0.428 something?
Yeah.
Alright. And at this point, you got to always watch your instructions. They'll tell you what to round it to. If they don't tell you what to round it to, the general rule is round it to the nearest 10. So I want the nearest whole number on this one. So I move this 2 places to the right. That's going to be 43%. Is it an increase or decrease? Decrease. Okay. Pretty simple? Yes? All right, example 3. Markup. Increase 13 by 30%. So you own a business. Something's $13, you want to increase it 30%. So what do you think we're going to do? Yes?
30% of 13 and add it on.
Okay. One way to do it is like this. 30% of the 13, that means multiplication. So 13 times 3, what do we get? 39?
Oh, sorry.
That was 3.
3.9.
How about 3.9? Okay, so we're going to, and then he said to add it to the 13. Okay, so it's 16.9. So that would be the total that you would be spending. If I just wanted to know the markup, what is the markup?
3.9.
3.9. So make sure when you're doing your problems that you read what it's asking for. If it wants the total, then you got to add it back in. If it just wants to know the markup, just give me what the markup is. Or in the next example, discount or markdown. Okay, another way to do this is, notice what we did here. We took 13 times 0.3 and then we added it back to itself. It's another way of saying this, 13 times 100% plus the 30%. So what is 100% of 13? Or what, excuse me, what is 100% plus 30%? 130%, which is what is a decimal? 1.3. Everybody tell me what 13 times 1.3 is. On your calculators.
16.9.
Because you're adding it back to itself, that's 100% of 13, right? And you're adding the 30% you figured out. So this is just a short way of figuring the total. If you want to know the tax, what you're going to pay when you go to a store, it's 7% tax, right?
Yeah.
So what do? You take 7% of your total and then you add it back to the original amount? Yes?
Yeah.
Why not just take it times 1.7? That'll give you your total amount. It's the exact same thing. So it's a different way of looking at it. But again, if it's just asking for what the markup is, you're just going to tell them the 3.9. Any questions? All right. Let's go with example 4. I want to know what the markdown is, or the discount. Decrease 63 by 25%. Decrease 63 by 25%. I just want to know how much we're going to mark it down. First of all, how do we do it? Sophie? You want to know 63 or 25% of 63, because that's what you're going to subtract. What? Yeah. So you're going to take 63 times 0.25. Sophie, what is that? What? Glenn, what is it?
15.75.
15?
Yes.
0.75. So you subtract 15.75 from it. But that's the markdown. All right. Can you do this? Some of you. All right, your assignment. Page 183, 1 to 14. You should go get this done before you get out of here. All right, good.